right, everyone. Welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I'm your host, Josh Silvestro, brand ambassador of Command Your Brand, where we help CEOs and founders get on top-rated podcasts. Grab our new book, ranked the #1 PR book on Amazon, bestpodcastbook.com. A reminder before we get into today's conversation to comment on and like this video and smash the subscribe button if you want to command your brand through the power of podcasting. So in this episode, we actually have a very special guest speaker. Where actually, I'm starting to grow on this industry because this industry is very fascinating to me, and just how actually it works, what the stipulations are, what the goods, the bads, and how can we actually better understand how this whole area works. So for people who don't know, this is definitely an area that I think a lot of people are confused about or just don't know a lot about. So I actually have a very special guest speaker who's just all about in this industry, he's the CEO and founder of Care Connect Advisors. And he's just a total awesome person who just really knows this stuff. And I just like to introduce you guys to Neil. Neil, thanks for joining the show, man.
Yeah, Josh, that's a great introduction, man. I hope I live up to what you built me up there for. So
yeah,
great to be here today. Thank you for having me as a guest.
Yeah, of course. So I guess we'll first start off, because I know we spoke a little bit, but for people who don't know, who are trying to build their business, or they're trying to learn about this area, I guess let's talk about you. And I'd like to know a little bit more about you. So where you come from and why you started the business that you have today.
Sure, yeah. Neil Reich, CEO and founder of Care Connect Advisors. We're in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in the Medicare Advantage industry since 1997.
Wow.
So 27 years, going on 28 years now. And I started with Humana here in Tampa, Florida, as a Medicare sales agent, and really stayed in the industry because of the gratifying feeling that I experienced helping seniors make the Medicare plan choices that were right for their personal needs.
Yeah.
And when I first started in the business in 1997, less than 5% of Americans that are on Medicare chose a Medicare Advantage plan. Today, it's closer to 50%.
Wow.
So it's really evolved. It's really grown. It's really appealing to consumers now because of the value of those plans. And when I first started in 97, there was times that I would walk out of someone's house and they were in tears because I helped them save $300 or $400 a month in their drug costs. And that was just really gratifying and rewarding. So I've stayed in the industry. And so I started with Humana in 1997, was a sales agent, became the #1 sales agent for Humana in the country in 1999, got promoted to a sales manager in 2000. And then my team was the #1 team in the country in 2000 and 2001. Got promoted again in 2004 with Humana to be a national sales manager.
Wow.
When at the time, our sales leader, a gentleman named Fred Wheeler, a pioneer of the Medicare Advantage industry, he had the vision of taking Humana from 6 states to 50 states with the advent of Medicare Part D, which started in 2006, which at that time, when Medicare Part D started, every Medicare beneficiary had to choose a Medicare Part D drug plan. And there was 43 million people on Medicare.
Wow.
So he had the vision of taking us national. So I got promoted to national sales manager, traveled the country, gave most of the largest field marketing organizations in our industry today, most of them that are largest ones, gave them their Humana contracts in 2005. So I did that role from 2005 to 2008. And during that time, I trained over 10,000 agents about Medicare Advantage and compliance and marketing rules and how to sell and how to position it to make sense to consumers. I did a lateral move really from that role in 2008 to be the state director of Georgia for Humana. Really, the decision was just because I was traveling so much. I lived in Tampa, Florida. My region was the West, so I did a lot of traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast. A lot of time zone differences there. Got a little taxing. Moved to Georgia. Ran the state of Georgia for Humana for 3 years. Left Humana in 2010 to start what's called a value-based care organization, which was Physicians Group Alliance in Atlanta, Georgia. And with that, we had, my partner and I had 9 medical practices. We had over 6,000 patients. And we contracted with plans like Humana and WellCare and Cigna to manage their Medicare Advantage members and patients. So my partner and I sold that in 2016. I went to go work for Heartland Financial Group in 2018 to grow their Medicare Advantage vertical. They were a company that really did more Medicare supplement and life sales. So I went there in 2018 And our first year there, we did 4,000 Medicare Advantage sales. My second year, we did 12,000. My third year, we did 20,000. And eventually grew the revenue for Medicare Advantage to be 40% of their annual revenue and positioned them to be acquired by Integrity Marketing Group to 2022. I stayed on for another year, 2023, early 2024, and then launched Care Connect Advisors April or March of 2024, almost a year ago.
Wow, that's amazing. So I guess I'm just kind of curious, just because I've only spoken to maybe a handful of people on this subject. And, for you, because you've been in the area for 28 years, almost as long as I've been alive. So I'm actually...
You feel old.
I know. But I guess for you, because you've been in the area for so long, what have you seen that's changed over the years? Like you've seen it, probably change drastically, maybe very small things. What have you seen in the past 25 years that's different from 1990s to now? We come in the era of 2025. What have you seen that's changed in those past years?
Yeah, great question. So, I mentioned earlier, like in 1997, less than 5% of Americans that are on Medicare chose Medicare Advantage. Most chose Medicare supplement plan, or actually really just had Medicare A and B with no supplement or no additional benefits. Yeah. So the change has really been the growth on the popularity of Medicare Advantage plans because of the way that they're reimbursed from CMS and Medicare to the health plans. The health plans are able to coordinate care, manage care, really manage costs and keep costs down for the individuals that receive those benefits. And then in doing that, they're able to share the savings with the consumers by giving them strong value proposition, 0 monthly premium. Like most Medicare Advantage plans, they have no monthly premium. So when a consumer enrolls into a Medicare Advantage plan, they pay their Medicare Part B premium, but they don't pay anything additional for their health benefits. They just pay copays when they go to the doctor. $5 for the primary care doctor, $25 for specialist, and some of those are even zero. Like here in Florida, most of those copays for a specialist or a primary would be zero. So that's been the change, is the growth, the expansion. Like I said earlier, with companies like Humana leading the way, really, in 2005 with the advent of Medicare Part D, Humana was in 5 states, and then in 1 year they were in 50 states operating. And then some other large companies, United Healthcare, Cigna, Aetna, which traditionally have been more commercial-based companies, have now expanded into Medicare, and United's the largest Medicare Advantage provider in the country. So it's been a lot of growth and carriers dipping into or coming into the landscape or the industry, and then just the value that they deliver to consumers, and consumers making the decision that they want to choose Medicare as their plan, Medicare Advantage as their plan of choice.
Wow, interesting. And so since you've obviously been here for so long, you've obviously led these organizations. I know you've mentioned, your Care Connect Advisors. You have, I'm sure you've done other ones, right? How do you envision what this would look like, the Medicare Advantage evolving, beyond, let's say, in the next decade or so? Like, what do you see is going to happen like the next 10, 15 years from now?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that's an interesting question, Josh, because
I know
I've been doing this for, as we just mentioned a couple of times, 27 years. And I think that, today, I feel like the future of Medicare is a little more blurry than it's been in 27 years. There's been some changes as it relates to how CMS and Medicare is reimbursing the plans. They've eliminated some of the codes that they had previously paid on, the diagnostic codes of their patients. So the payment methodology is reimbursements are tied to the risk management of those patients. So based on that, that's how the payment methodology is calculated. Well, CMS has eliminated codes that they were paying on previously, so that's changed the reimbursement rates to Medicare Advantage companies. On top of that, in the last couple of years, the carriers have seen a spike in their medical loss ratios. Utilization is higher. More people are going to the hospital. More people, after COVID, they've just seen a spike in hospital visits, drug needs, doctor visits. So people using their plan and utilization is higher. So medical loss ratios are higher. And with that, this past year, this year, 2025, we're seeing a lot of changes where the plans are pulling back on benefits. So I think it's a little blurry for me right now, the future of Medicare. I mean, there's a change in the administration. as well from Biden to Trump, and we'll see how that plays out. I'm not really sure right now. There's some things that are in question there. So
Yeah.
as a result of that, like at Care Connect Advisors, what we're doing is that we're now launching some, I launched the Care Connect Advisors a year ago with a core focus on Medicare Advantage, and that being our core product. Now we're launching a division and a vertical that's going to be Index Universal Life Sales. We're also simultaneously also focused on annuity products for consumers out there. So, the fact that Medicare is a little blurry, it's not going to go away, but it's just there's some uncertainty there about what the future might look like in 3 or 4 years from now. So a pivot for us is to really get focused on some of these other products.
Do you think, just from your standpoint and where you stand, do you think it may change businesses or people, how they take on care or how they take on Medicare or any other ones? Do you think that'll affect their decision in terms of business, like how they operate in a business, or do you think that'll change, or do you think that'll stay the same?
You're talking about from like an agency business standpoint or a consumer? You're on business.
Well, I guess for both, I know people I'm from New York City, and a lot of New Yorkers are reliant on their jobs that have health care and health benefits. Do you think that will change in terms of what's happening? Because, I think a lot of us, not me particularly, but a lot of people, especially in the city or maybe anywhere else, rely on their jobs for the health care, like just the 401k or Medicare or whatever benefits they're getting from that. Do you think if that is changing, or if they're uncertain, do you think that'll affect people's jobs or staying in businesses like that?
Yeah, you're asking great questions, Josh. I keep saying That's a great question, or interesting question. That's another one, because it's we actually just started a strategic partnership with an organization in Missouri that does a lot of employee benefits. They have over 1.2 million Americans that they provide employee benefits to, and about 60,000 of those are over the age of 65. So they're still working. They're over the age of 65. They're eligible for Medicare benefits, but they typically are still staying on their employer group plans, which in those scenarios, it costs the employer more money than it would cost for that person to go on an individual Medicare plan. It also costs the consumer. So we've created some strategic partnerships and initiatives to educate business owners, small business owners, and then the consumers, the value of Medicare Advantage plans by sharing that, hey, it's a zero premium. So if you, as a small business owner with 100 employees or less, if you take your 3 or 4 employees that are over the age of 65 and remove them from your group plan, the premium for you as a business owner will go down. The premium for all your other employees will go down, and your employees that go on an individual Medicare Advantage plan typically are going to get better benefits on that individual plan than they had on the group benefits. So it's really a scenario where a lot of people win. And I think, as I was saying earlier, the future of Medicare is a little blurry. For us at Care Connect Advisors, that's an important strategy, and we're focused on that. We're scaling that right now. We have 2 strategic partnerships in place, and we're adding others because we look at that as a sales opportunity for the future for us as an agency and a business, and all of our agents that work with us. Then from the consumer standpoint, for me, doing this for as long as I have, it's really important for Care Connect Advisors. I want to brand our agency as the agency for people that are turning 65 and starting Medicare, for you to come to us, lean on my expertise. All the agents that work for Care Connect, all my downline infrastructure. We are experts in helping people navigate and the complex waters of Medicare, because it's complex. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and we make it simple. And we want all Americans to know, hey, when you turn 65, come find Care Connect Advisors at careconnectadvisors.com. Come to us, and we'll help you do a needs analysis, identify what your personal needs are from a provider standpoint, from a medication standpoint, from a health standpoint, and then choose the right plan.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, Neil. Is that I've been around New York City for, I've been coming to the city my whole life, especially just the city. And I've been obviously around the world. And it's funny is I'm noticing that, when you talk about healthcare and just how to take care of yourself, it's such a touchy subject, because it's just there's people out there, especially the older generation, that are, they're scared of, getting these health issues, and they have these things going on. And now it's actually affecting the younger generation, where oh my God, I'm scared to get these things, and I need to be on some health benefits. And it's kind of wild to me just how much it's such a, and I think what's cool about you is that you've made it such a very simple process, but also a very uh, exciting thing rather than just something that's supposed to be really scary and like very complicated. You know what I mean? And so I kind of appreciate more about you than it's just the idea that like, yes, I'm going to be safe, but also it's kind of made to be easy, and the process it can be very simple. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's really cool what you're doing with helping a lot of these people, because a lot of us, I'm not particularly scared about it, but I know a lot of friends and family and people around me are always scared about what they're going to get and their future, and they're always worried and they're always scared about what that's going to happen to them. You know what I mean? So I find that's really important what you're doing, I think.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that and
Yeah.
recognizing that. And you're right. I think that it is important. One of the things in terms of doing what I've done for so long, and when I was a sales agent, I personally helped over 2,000 Americans choose the right Medicare plan for them. And one thing that resonated with me I'll never forget, like the people that I met with, those 2,000 people that I helped during that time, and I met with more than 2,000, obviously 2,000 who I enrolled, but to make 2,000 clients, you have to talk to 4,000, 5,000 people.
Right.
One thing that just always stood out to me is that the people that were healthy, that exercised, had a good diet, and took supplements and vitamins. They were consistent and focused on taking their daily vitamins and their supplements. I met people that were in their 80s. They looked like they were in their 60s.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It just always resonated with, like, man, those people they live a healthy lifestyle, and they look 10 or 15 years younger. And then there was many people that I would meet in their 60s, and they were taking 5 or 6 different medications, and they looked like they were 80.
I know.
And they were frail and they were fragile. And that just always stuck with me. I started, like I said, with Humana in '97. So I was young, and that just always kind of stayed with me. And because of that, I've always maintained a healthy lifestyle. I work out 5 days a week. I have a good diet. I take my vitamins, my supplements. And I'm 56 today. I don't take any medication for blood pressure or cholesterol or nothing. I'm all pretty good there. Knock on wood. And yeah, it's just, I think the other part of that also resonated with me in terms of my experience. And I mentioned that after I left Humana, I owned a value-based care. I was a managing partner of a value-based care organization for 6 years, and really understanding that part of it. So, at Humana, I learned all about sales and marketing and how plans are designed and how they're reimbursed. And then I flipped over to the provider side and learned all about clinical protocols and managing Medicare patients that have chronic diseases through value-based care. And today I have a very strong affinity for value-based care, and we work closely with large national or regional, they're not national, they're regional value-based care organizations like Centerwell, like Oak Street, and those provider groups that we work with and we introduce Medicare beneficiaries and Americans to. Their specialty is focusing on Medicare patients with chronic diseases and helping them manage those chronic diseases, whether it's diabetes or COPD or heart disease. And that's what we did at Physicians Group Alliance. Like, we would profile our patients, and based on their profile, put them into 1 or 4 different quadrants. And then that quadrant determined how frequently we would see them: every 30 days, every 60 days, every 90 days, or every 6 months. And that's what the value-based care does. And it really helps people improve the quality of their life and live longer. It's fantastic.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned all those things. It's like, I always look at these rock stars that we have, from, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and you look at them today, they look like, like my first impression is like they kind of look like, what's his face from Black Sabbath, the singer. The name escapes me. Ozzy Osbourne. Thank you. It's like, they just really look messed up. They look like they age like 30, 40 years, and like they're totally not that age at all. It's just like really wild to me how people just don't take care of their body, especially, I look at today, for example, like there's people, who are young guys, they're like their 30s and their 40s, and they look like they're 60s, they put the sleep and the vitamins and like not taking all those things and supplements. It's just really wild to me, like, how people just don't take care of themselves. And I think the plans that you're describing sound like amazing, so I guess like, for people who are listening and for people, for you, like, there's obviously people who want to manage like chronic diseases and, they want to have like, take care of those things and even just suppress them or just like make them better. I think probably anyone wants to make it better. How do you personalize healthcare? Like, what's your approach to improving the healthcare system to a more generalized or compared to a more generalized system?
Yeah, I think it's really kind of goes back to what I said just about value-based care. It's about aligning with those, strategically aligning with those organizations, and we do. Like we have, the agents that we work with here in Florida and in Georgia and in Ohio and other states. We introduce them to the local leaders of Oak Street or Centerwell or GenCare or others, Archwell. We get them introduced and aligned and make sure that we educate our agents on the importance of value-based care, what it means, what do they do, what's their focus, how do they profile their patients, how are they reimbursed. So providing that education to an agent gives them that insight so they can kind of go out there and articulate the importance of value-based care to consumers. So when they're sitting down and meeting with someone that's turning 65 and started their Medicare, and they could talk about, I look at the healthcare system in our nation today is broken.
Yeah.
In one way that I've always kind of conveyed it when I was in sales to consumers, is like we've all kind of had the same experience. You have a doctor appointment at 9:00. You show up at 8:45. You check in. They tell you to sit in the waiting room, and the nurse will take you back in a few minutes. It's 35 minutes before they come and take you back, right? They take you back to the exam room. They check your vitals. They spend about 3 or 4 minutes with you. They say, hey, the doctor will be in to see you in 10 minutes. Another 35 minutes go by. The doctor comes in and you see them for 5 minutes. He writes a script. He or she writes a script for you and you leave. And that's like our healthcare system in America. You spend an hour and a half at the doctor's office to see the doctor for 5 minutes.
Right.
And value-based care just goes to the other, extreme. It's like your first minute is 40 minutes with a provider. The doctor is sitting down with you and having eye contact and face to face. They're not typing in a laptop. They're like looking at you and they're dictating, and they've got someone that's putting the information into the electronic medical record. But they're having a conversation with you and they're learning about your exercise regimen, your diet, your what do you do? You walk daily. How many medications are you on? How many providers have you seen? How many doctors do you see currently? So they gather all that information and they design like a tailored plan specific to the needs of that individual. Yeah. And it makes a big difference. It really does.
Yeah. It's such a wild thing, just how all this works, and I know your goal with, your Care Connect advisors, your goal is, I know you want to help brokers and professionals in the Medicare Advantage field. What do you find is the most important advice that you can give to those looking to thrive in that industry?
Yeah, great question. So we've designed, and anyone that's listening today at the end can go to our website, careconnectadvisors.com. We have a playbook that you can sign up and share. We'll share the playbook with you for 2025. But it's really to be successful. It's really always understanding how much change happens within our industry. The Medicare Advantage plans, they're filed annually. The plans, they go through what's called a bid process. And they, the sales leaders at every different health plan, they spend weeks collaborating with their actuaries and their sales leaders and their executive team. They get together and they'll spend weeks designing the plans that they're going to roll out for the next year. Like we're in 2025 right now. In February, they'll start it like in the next 2 weeks. They'll start that process, and then it'll start in February. It'll go all the way through like April. And then they'll design the plans for 2026, and they have to file them with Medicare, and Medicare has to approve them. And I think that the advice is understanding how much change happens. The plans change from year to year. And as I mentioned earlier, post-COVID, people are just going to the doctor more. They're having ER visits, they're having hospital admissions, they're going to their primary doctor, they're going to specialists, and it's driving medical costs up. And as a result of that, in 2025, we saw some national players discontinue plans that they were offering last year. There was plans available to consumers in 2024 that are not available today, and that's part of the change that I'm kind of sharing here. Like there's so much change that happens in our industry. One of the other changes that a lot of brokers that work in our field, I think they're going to be handcuffed or handicapped when we get to April, because there's been significant change to how consumers that qualify for both Medicare and Medicaid, traditionally they've been able to change their plan more frequently throughout the year rather than being limited to just the annual enrollment period. Well, that goes away in 2025.
Right.
So it's really kind of being able to pivot, being able to understand, having the depth of knowledge of the landscape, the current landscape, and what changes are impacting what you do as a professional individual that
Yeah.
can keep you busy for the whole year.
Yeah. And I guess for people who are in the industry, right, of course, again, with the current landscape, how should insurance agents and consumers adapt to these shifting policies and things that are changing, like with the healthcare system and especially Medicare Advantage? Like, what do you think people should watch out for, or how should they adapt to these policies?
Yeah, so I think as it relates to, like, when you talk about agents in the field, I think it's really important for the agent to make sure that they're aligned with their right upline. So
Mm.
there's a hierarchy structure within Medicare Advantage. There's organizations that are called national marketing organizations or field marketing organizations or managing general agencies. There's this hierarchy of different entities, and agents are at the bottom of the structure. They're in the field, they're on the ground, they're meeting with consumers and educating consumers. So agents align with one of those different organizations. I think it's important for agents to make sure that they're aligned with the right upline. That's what it's called, an upline.
Yeah.
Like Care Connect Advisors. My partner and some of the strategic partners we have here, they always kind of joke me. They always say to me, "Hey, you're like the agent's agent. You've been doing this for so long. You had a book of business over 2,000 consumers. You trained over 10,000 agents. You're like the agent's agent, and not a lot of CEOs that are in our industry running an agency like Care Connect. A lot of them never sold a Medicare Advantage plan. So I think it's, that's kind of your question, like what does an agent need to do? It's like, make sure you're aligned with an agency that knows what you do. Like, I've been in the field and walked in their shoes and educated consumers and helped them make the right plan choices and explain the importance of the value-based care. So just being aligned with that right partner upline.
Right. And so is there, I'm sure there is success in this area because a lot of people, I think, it's all about, knowing the field and knowing how to operate in that field. Do you think, in your experience, do you think insurance agents play in the success in Medicare Advantage? How do they connect with the right prospects more effectively? Like, what do you find is the right way to actually connect with these people?
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot. Right? I think it's and again, you're asking great questions here because during my career it's just changed so much. And when I was at Heartland and was in the capacity with them as a senior vice president, we did a lot of mail. Like, we just dropped mail. We sent mailers out to people turning 65 or people that were already on Medicare that may qualify for, like, what's called low income subsidy, which provides them additional benefits that they would qualify for. So we marketed in that regard where it was just a lot of mail. Well,
Mm.
COVID hit and we came out of COVID and mail just kind of fell off the cliff. It's really not the preferred method of connecting with prospects and Medicare beneficiaries. And today, even in the Medicare space, a lot of marketing is done digitally.
Right.
Facebook ads, Instagram ads, just banner ads. There's just a lot of digital traffic that's happening, and we work with a company called Medicare Express, and they do something very unique, and we've been working. I started working with them when I was at Heartland Financial Group, and now that I launched Care Connect Advisors, they're my number one source for marketing and prospecting, and they do something very unique where they actually digitally market to consumers, and they schedule appointments for agents in home. So they're preset. Like if you're one of my agents, Josh, I'm going to say, hey, Josh, this week you're going to see Mr. and Mrs. Jones on Tuesday at 10 o'clock, Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. So all you have to do is show up and present and show them the different plans. And as a result of that, the work that Medicare Express does allows our agents to close at over 50% of the meetings that they're scheduled for them. And that's, I would tell you that myself being an agent, the one thing agents hate the most is prospecting. like 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 getting a bunch of lead cards back and then sitting on the phone for 3 hours and calling people and getting 120 no's and like 3 yeses to schedule appointments. Agents
Yeah.
hate that. part of just the business, and Medicare Express takes that away.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I guess like we'll look on this side because like, people, I think people want to get in this industry. I think because people, it's made so complicated that like, I think that's why there's not enough people in the industry. So I think what what you explained and described has actually made it super simple. So I think anyone can really, harness that power of how to actually run, you know, being in that business and actually really confronts that fact of how can I do it and do it right. You know what I mean? So and ethically too, which I think is very important. Now, I guess on the consumer side, right? What is the most common misconceptions that, as a consumer, that people have about Medicare Advantage, and how do agents effectively dispel these myths? How do people you know, there's common things that people have, and obviously it's false or wrong. How do people like you or anyone else really, get rid of that myth?
Yeah. When I first started in the business again, I was kind of referencing, I started in 97. So things were so different back then. And I distinctly remember like working for Humana, and Humana was a Medicare HMO plan in Florida. It was really across Florida. And there was bad press. There was like Humana killed someone's grandmother because they wouldn't give them care. And it was like there was this bad press out there, and tied to Medicare Advantage and HMO plans. And back then it was all HMO plans. So with HMO, you have a primary care doctor that's like the gatekeeper, so to speak. You have restricted networks, and those are really designed. The restricted networks are designed really as a cost savings approach. So initially, when Medicare Advantage started, it was all just HMOs. Today, there's local PPO plans, there's regional PPO plans, there's national PPO plans. So I think the stigma that was tied to Medicare Advantage for a long time was like, hey, you can't go to your doctor because their doctor's not part of the network. If you go on this Medicare Advantage plan, your primary care doctor is going to determine what kind of care you can get or can't get. And that was the stigma attached to Medicare Advantage for a long time. And that's gone away. And really, in terms of like agents conveying that to consumers, the best way is like over time, there's been this evolution within Medicare Advantage. And now instead of just HMO plans, there are still HMO plans, but PPO plans have overtaken them in popularity. And again, they're designed locally, they're designed regionally, they're designed nationally. Aetna's got an incredible national PPO network where members of Aetna's Medicare Advantage plans can access doctors across the nation. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's just a wild thing how much benefits people can get what you do. So I think I more appreciate healthcare more than ever.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
That's great.
Conversation today, then.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess what I would love to hear, because obviously you've helped. I feel like you're a guy that's helped probably thousands of people. I'm going to say ballpark tens of thousands of people, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. But I would like to hear some stories or like some successes that you've had from people you've helped, that with your whole business. And I just love to hear what people have, said about it.
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, when I was at Humana, I was promoted to a national sales manager in 2005. And if you look at our industry today, Integrity Marketing Group is by far the most recognized name. And the founder and CEO of Integrity Marketing Group is a guy named Brian Adams. And I gave him his Humana contract back in 2005. And so he started with was actually they were called Premier Marketing at the time, and they were doing a lot of like final expense life insurance, and gave him his Humana contract in 2000. Actually, it was 2006 with Brian. And we spent weeks together traveling out west and training a bunch of his agents up and down the west coast of America. And that was in 2006. And fast forward to 2025, Integrity Marketing Group is like the largest FMO in the country. They did over a million Medicare Advantage enrollments during the last annual enrollment period that just ended this past December. And there's others. I mean, there's in addition to Brian, there's Agent Pipeline and AmeriLife, all those large national marketing organizations that gave them their Humana contracts and trained hundreds or if not thousands of their agents. And then one particular gentleman, a guy named Eric McGuffey, he owns an agency in Georgia called Access Benefits. And Eric and I worked together at Humana for several years. And and he was contemplating starting his own agency. And he'll tell you this story. Like, we spent like 3 hours on the phone one day. He's like, I was sitting in Walmart parking lot and talking to you for like 3 hours about starting my agency. Like, I made the decision that day. I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm starting my agency tomorrow. And he did.
Wow.
That was in 2018. It was in 2018. And, again, fast forward to 2025, and Eric probably has 20,000 members on his book of business that he and his agents have helped in the last 5 or 6 years help them make the right Medicare plan choice.
That's great, man. Well, I really appreciate the time you kind of given me, because I know, especially you're a CEO, you're busy, and you've probably helped a lot of people. So I really appreciate the time you kind of given us on, this episode here on the Command Your Brand show. And I really appreciate the questions that I was able to ask on what healthcare is, what we can do about it, and how your business can help benefit anyone else. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. It was a pleasure being on here, and I really appreciate you having me as a guest today, Josh.
Yeah, of course. So I do want people to connect with you and kind of find out more about you. I know you have a free gift of some kind. I would love to just hear, where can people reach out to you? Where can people find you that and I know, that you want to give people something. So I'll let you take it over from there.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So careconnectadvisors.com. So careconnectadvisors with an S.com. Go to our website. Click on the Playbook button on the landing page and get to our website, and we'll give us your email and your name, and we'll email you out our playbook for 2025, which is really the map on how to have a successful selling campaign in 2025 and the confusing time of Medicare Advantage and all the changes that are taking place. So we have
Awesome.
That playbook available for anyone that goes to our website, careconnectadvisors.com.
Awesome. Well, Neil, thank you so much for joining the show. And I really appreciate the time you've given us to ask a lot of questions about that. And of course, I thank everyone here for joining the show here. If you guys like this stuff, please like and subscribe to that, and definitely keep listening because we have more stuff to go over in our later episodes. We're going to get some exciting guests coming on. So I really appreciate the time, Neil. And, thank you for joining the show.
Yeah, you bet. My pleasure. Great to be here.
Yeah.